From the Beastie Boys, to Eminem, to Slim Jesus, there have always been white rappers in hip-hop. Some are respected, and some get a lot of hate. Here's a look at 12 white rappers who have proven that they are really about that life. Menace Monroe. Menace Monroe is a rapper from West Baltimore, Maryland. He's built a name for himself in the city with songs like McDonald's and 23 and 1, as well as several freestyle videos he's uploaded to YouTube. But before the music, Menace Monroe was really in the streets. He went to prison at the age of 20 for armed robbery and spent 6 years locked up. He claims he was selling weed and other drugs at the time, and one of his connections finessed him.
What it was, I was selling weed and different drugs and shit at the time, and somebody had took me off.
He found the guy through an acquaintance and found out he was selling Xanax. The dude who finessed him didn't remember Menace, and he was able to rob him by posing as a customer. The guy called the cops, and there were several witnesses. So Menace ended up catching the charge.
So I bought the Xanax from him, and then when he got out the car, I got out with him and I pulled the gun out on him. And I just took the money back that I gave him. That's all he had. And I jumped in the car, and as we were driving, I could already see him on the phone. He called the police. They got my license plate, all that shit.
That shit was crazy, man.
Yeah, there was witnesses outside the scene, and I couldn't even beat this shit.
Because he had a prior armed robbery charge as a minor, the judge hit him with a harsh sentence, and he ended up doing 6 years. After he was released, he decided to take music more seriously and has built a decent name for himself in the city. OT The Real. OT The Real is a rapper originally from outside of Boston, but based in Philly, who's known for his lyrical ability and freestyle skills. OT started releasing music in 2016 after being released from prison. He's built a name for himself with tracks like Ocean Eyes and Kensington Beach featuring Beanie Siegel. Yet, before being recognized for his lyrical talent, OT was really in the streets. He claims he was first booked at 17 for stealing car radios and was in and out of the system. He got locked up in 2010, spent about 5 years in prison before being released. After that, he decided to start taking music more seriously. He claims that the area he grew up in was hit hard by drugs, and he watched many of his friends die of heroin. He turned to selling drugs and committing armed robberies to make it out, but decided to change his ways after spending so many years behind bars. Jordan McCann. Jordan McCann is a British rapper from Salford, UK. Jordan is a well-known figure in the area he grew up in and started to gain recognition in 2019 after dropping his debut track, Lifestyle. Jordan grew up in Salford and was one of 7 children. His father died in prison when the artist was young, and his brother Patrick McCann is currently in jail as well. Jordan has been in and out of the system since he was young. He was jailed for 6 years when he was a teenager for possession of marijuana and cocaine with intent to sell. He got locked up again in 2016 for his involvement in a series of shootings with rival gangs. In the same case, Jordan's mother and brother were also charged, and the media painted the McCanns to be a dangerous crime family. After the release of Lifestyle, the court brought him back to jail for violating probation by rapping about drugs and crime. All in all, Jordan has spent almost a decade behind bars. However, he's one of the most promising young rappers coming out of the Manchester area, and if he can manage to stay out of trouble, he could have a promising career. 917 Racks. 917 Racks is a white drill rapper from Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. His mother is Ukrainian, and he grew up speaking Russian, but was born and raised in New York. He's built a buzz for himself with tracks like Red Dot and Czar, where he raps in Russian. Despite being white and only 15 years old, 917 Racks claims he's really about that life. In the video for Red Dot, he can be seen repping red flags and claiming the blood. In an interview with Knucklehead TV, he responds to a question about his street activities that he is outside despite his appearance. He doesn't elaborate too much on his activities, but he does stress that he's really about that life and not just capping. Racks is still an up-and-coming artist, so only time will tell whether he's really about it or just doing it for the marketing. YNR Slugger T. YNR Slugger T is a rapper from Jacksonville, Florida, who has built a name for himself in the Florida drill scene with tracks like 5 AM and Murder Twins with YNR Mookie. Not too much is known about YNR Slugger T's backstory, although he's currently in jail after being arrested with 6 other Jacksonville rappers and gang members in a sting called Operation Wrap Up.
The sheriff's office announced 9 people involved in Operation Wrap Up at a news conference Tuesday. Sheriff Mike Williams says 6 have been arrested, but 3 are still on the run.
These videos typically glorify drug use. They celebrate a culture of violence.
The artists were arrested for posting music videos, holding guns, and threatening rival gang members. Authorities claim that one of the tracks was directed at fellow Jacksonville rapper Youngin Ace, who was the only survivor of a drive-by shooting that occurred back in 2018. Police claim the Y&R crew has ties to other violent crimes in Jacksonville and brags about it in their music. So despite his strange appearance, it seems like Y&R Slugger T is about that life. Potter Paper. Potter Paper is a British rapper from Barking, London. He grew up in Gascoigne Estate, the British version of a public housing project, to a British-Irish mother and Albanian father. In an interview with Complex, Potter said his childhood was fun but got serious around age 10 or 11, which is when he started getting in trouble. He was kicked out of school and took to selling drugs to support himself. He ended up going in and out of jail and most recently was sentenced to 5 years and 4 months on drug charges back in 2018. He was released in 2020 for good behavior after serving just 3 years. Since then, he's hit the ground running with his music career and released an album called Training Day 3 on September 18, 2020. Potter has built a name for himself in the UK and he's starting to build his buzz among international audiences. So if he can stay out of trouble, he has a promising career ahead of him. Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll is a rapper and singer from Nashville, Tennessee. His music is a blend of country and hip-hop, and he's known for his collaborations with popular southern artists like Lil White, Struggle Jennings, and Tech N9ne. Jelly Roll grew up in the Antioch neighborhood of Nashville, and his father left the family when he was a teenager. He started selling drugs and getting involved in the streets as a way to support himself, and ended up going to juvie at just 14 for armed robbery. After that, he dropped out of high school and ended up going back to prison for marijuana and cocaine possession. But after having a daughter in his early 20s, Jelly Roll decided to turn his life around and focus on his music career. He managed to find a lane for himself by being honest about his past, his struggles and addictions, and the bad choices he made along the way, and is now one of the most respected white rappers from the South. K-Coke. K-Coke is a British rapper from Stonebridge, London. He started gaining attention for his Are You Alone diss track and his Fire in the Booth freestyle on BBC Radio 1 Extra. His first mixtape, Pure Coke Volume 1, earned him a deal with Roc Nation in 2011. But just as his career was heating up, K-Coke's past came back to haunt him. He was arrested on March 9, 2011 for the attempted murder of a 27-year-old football player who was shot in the back at Harlesden Station in London. After standing trial, the rapper was acquitted of all charges but had already spent 7 months in prison. He was dropped by Roc Nation in 2015 and picked up by Universal Music and continues to release music. Sueno. Sueno is a rapper from Detroit, Michigan. He first blew up on the short-lived social media app Vine and has racked up hundreds of thousands of streams on tracks like On My Mama and Bite Down. Sueno grew up in the Downriver area of Detroit. His dad died when he was young, and he bounced back and forth between living with his mother and his grandmother. Sueno got involved in the streets at an early age. Growing up, he had frequent legal troubles and got shot back in 2016, which slowed his career. He ended up selling his Vine for cash shortly before the app was discontinued and has been slowly building a following for his music ever since. With features from local legends like T Grizzly and Boldy James, Sueno could have a major career if he stays focused. Logan Cage. Logan Cage is a rapper from the south side of Chicago. He's built a buzz for himself in the city with his debut project, 1636, and his follow-up project, Still Iconic. Logan's father was sent to prison when he was 10, and growing up, his family struggled financially. He ended up getting involved in the streets to support himself. He and a group of his friends got shot on the highway in Chicago back in 2015. Logan ended up getting grazed in the back of the head, and the 2 others were hit several times, but everyone survived. He says that the shooting made him reconsider the people he had around him and made him make changes to his team and the way he moved. Since then, he continued to build a name for himself in the city and is committed to building his music career. Suicide Boys. Suicide Boys is a rap duo from New Orleans, Louisiana, made up of cousins Ruby the Cherry and Scrim. Raised in the 7th Ward of New Orleans, the two were close growing up and started making music together in 2014. Scrim is a former opiate addict who used to sell drugs and rob to feed his habit before making music. In an interview with No Jumper, he says he used to lure people through Craigslist and rob them to sustain his addiction. He originally started making beats on a laptop he bought with money he made in the street and made a pact with his cousin that if music didn't work, the two would kill themselves. Luckily, the group began to gain a buzz with their early releases on SoundCloud and Bandcamp and have gone on to be one of the most successful underground rap acts currently performing. White Sosa. White Sosa is a rapper from Memphis, Tennessee. He grew up in East Memphis and was inspired by artists like Moneybagg Yo, Key Glock, and NBA Youngboy to start rapping. He's gained buzz for tracks like Type of Day and hit the scene with NLE Chopper. White Sosa claims that growing up wasn't as rough as other areas in Memphis, but he still went through the same struggles as everyone else growing up in the city. Despite his decision to enroll in college for sports management, White Sosa couldn't entirely escape the streets. In February 2021, while on a weekend trip to LA to work with rapper Kasky, Sosa was robbed at gunpoint and ended up getting hit by a car. He's currently in a coma fighting for his life, and hopefully he'll pull through and be able to continue his music career.